Hi, welcome back to the Gapster channel. My name is Gabby. I'm going to talk today about this DAC. It's by Douk Audio and it's called the Dac Q11. It's a very unique DAC because it has two chips, one ESS chip, the 9038, and the other one is an AKM chip, the 4493. Both are very popular chips these days and they're both very good DAC chips. Now this thing has both. This is a very unique thing in today's DAC. The fact that you can actually, with your remote control, and switch between one DAC or the other, or even both. But we'll talk about both a little bit later. It's got some nice little LED displays, and it's a pretty cool DAC. This is by no means, this is no very high-end DAC. There's a way better DACs out there, but for $169, this DAC is definitely has its place, especially that it comes with two very reputable DAC chips. So here's a little close-up of the DAC on the front. We've got the volume knob right here. And here you can switch the mode. You cannot switch the modes with the knob. You have to use your remote for that. So this is ESS, that's AKM plus ESS, and this is AKM. And if we turn the unit on the other side, we'll get a good idea of what we're talking about here. So this has two outputs. Here is output 1 and output 2. So one is the ESS and one is the AKM. It's not like what I was thinking is that you can combine both together. It takes a lot to do that because you learn to think about phase issues, some latency, timing issues is critical. So they are separate outputs. There is an optical and a coaxial input and also a USB input as well. What's really interesting is that the top of the unit has a clear top, so you can actually see the DAC chips and all the components inside. It's got some nice LED lights inside it. So it's a pretty cool unit in that regard. So here you can see the top clear area, and you can see there's a couple of DAC chips in there. And so it's pretty cool. It's for someone like to see it inside without having to take it apart. So I thought that was a cool actually feature. It's funny, I actually on my Dacs, on my Gapster D11 DAC, that's exactly what I did, except of course it's a whole different quality of a DAC. So how does it sound? I think that's the most important question for a DAC, because the whole thing about DACs is a lot of them do sound the same after a while, and unless you really venture into some very high-end DACs, they tend to seem to sound very close to each other. Especially when you look at a DAC like this, we definitely have some constraints. The power supply is a wall wart power supply. It's a really inexpensive one. So changing that to a linear power supply seems to give the DAC a little better sound actually. And the other thing is the DAC is also limited by its output stage. And so, you know, when you have a certain budget, you can only go so far. And but having said all that, the DAC does sound good. This has some very good chips in there that really helps it. And now you'd ask which one is better. Is the ESS chip better than the AKM? I tried both of them, switching between one or the other. You have to be careful because the ESS is a 2-volt output versus 1.8 for the AKM. So you have to adjust the volume, otherwise you're going to be biased and choose the ESS for just the better dynamic range because of the volume is higher. But after adjusting the volumes, to be honest with you, I did not see like an earth-shattering difference here. They were both fairly close to each other. And also maybe the SS is slightly more analytical, if you could say. But again, I think I'm kind of being influenced by what I know. The AKM may be slightly more rounded around the edges. Again, I would not say one or the other. I'll let you decide on that. The other thing is that, like I said earlier, you are bound by the output stage. If I could see from the When looking from the clear openings on the top, it seems like you can actually change the output stage op amps. So there is a little bit of leeway here where you can actually play around and get maybe some higher end op amps and plug them in there and see if that changes the sound signature or not. So I think for $169, which what this thing cost, it's a pretty darn good deal, especially if you're getting two very high-end chips. Just buying those chips alone on the free market costs quite a bit of money. So I love the display. It's that blue, but it's not like in your face. It's very subtle, it's diffuse, and it's kind of soft. The remote control is a really nice thing to have. So all in all, it's a decent DAC for someone that's starting out, or someone that want to use it for another room, or someone that's just curious to see if they can find a difference between an ESS and an AKM chip. So it's got some cool features that I would give Douk Audio a couple thumbs up for coming up with some really neat ideas, I would say. It's funny, I had the same idea about 6 months ago. I was thinking of upgrading my D11 DAC and putting a TD1 in it so I can listen to both, just in case I wanted to listen to some DSD files, because the TD1 is a vintage DAC that doesn't support DSD. Mind you, I don't have a lot of DSD files, to be honest with you. Most of my listening is just regular Redbook files or 82s and 192 kilohertz, which the TD1 can handle no problem. But I thought it would be a cool idea to have them both, especially that you already have the power supply. It's kind of easier to integrate a second DAC in there and being able to switch between one or the other. But here it is. It looks like these guys being either telepathically listening to me, or maybe I was listening to them. So that's the idea of the two DACs in one box. In the corner up here, I'm going to put a link about my Gapster TD1 DAC. This is a DIY DAC. This is not something you can buy and plug it in, and definitely it's going to cost you a couple $1,000 there just to get it going. So this is not for the beginners. It's for more, at least you have to be a DIYer and know a little bit about building things. But if you do, this is an incredible DAC that's basically going to outperform almost any DAC out there. I'm going to put a link of it up here anyway, if you'd like to if you're curious. In this corner, I'm going to put 10 songs. These are very holographic, very well detailed, and they can actually spark up your system and even help you set up your system. My Patreon link is in the description below if you'd like to help the channel. There'll be a speaker in the middle if you'd like to subscribe. I hope to see you in another video. Take care.